Breaking: King Charles has just blocked Keir Starmer's flagship legislation in a move so unprecedented that constitutional experts are calling it the biggest royal intervention since 1936. Within minutes, Westminster descended into complete chaos. Ministers are threatening resignation. The opposition is demanding emergency debates, and leaked WhatsApp messages reveal Labour MPs plotting to strip the monarchy of its remaining powers forever. If you want to see how this constitutional crisis destroys Britain's government, hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens in the next 72 hours will determine whether the monarchy survives or falls. Here's what sparked the most explosive royal confrontation in modern British history. Tuesday morning 9:47 a.m. Star's Digital Identity Bill was scheduled for Royal Assent standard procedure, a formality that takes 10 minutes, a rubber stamp that hasn't been refused in 316 years. The bill forces every British citizen to register biometric data, fingerprints, facial scans, DNA samples, all stored in a government database controlled by Whitehall. Starr called it modernization. Privacy advocates called it totalitarian surveillance, but nobody, absolutely nobody, expected King Charles to care. His constitutional role is ceremonial. Sign the papers, stay silent, never interfere, until yesterday when everything changed. At 10:15 a.m., palace officials delivered a single-page letter to Downing Street. The language was formal, measured, devastating. His Majesty has concerns regarding the constitutional implications and civil liberties impact of the proposed legislation. Royal assent is respectfully withheld pending further consultation. 17 words that detonated like a bomb in the heart of British government. Starr reportedly read the letter 3 times, his face draining of color with each pass. Then he crumpled the paper in his fist and shouted words witnesses described as unprintable. The Prime Minister's exact response, according to a senior aide who was in the room, was this: "He's a figurehead, not a legislator. Charles has forgotten that crowns don't write laws in this country anymore. We do. And if he thinks he can block the will of Parliament, he's about to learn a very painful lesson about who actually runs Britain." Those words, leaked within hours, would trigger the biggest constitutional crisis since the abdication. Because Starmer didn't just challenge the King's decision, he threatened the monarchy itself. The response was swift and absolutely devastating. Within 90 minutes, Conservative leader Rishi Sunak stood in Parliament and delivered a statement so cutting, so precise that Labour MPs sat in stunned silence. "The Prime Minister has confused democracy with dictatorship," Sunak declared, his voice cold with fury. When a monarch questions legislation that threatens fundamental British freedoms, that's not obstruction. That's exactly what constitutional guardians are supposed to do. And when a Prime Minister responds with threats and intimidation, that tells you everything about his fitness to govern. The chamber erupted. Conservative MPs roared approval. Labour MPs shouted denials. But the damage was done. Within 3 hours, the hashtag Defend the King hit #1 globally, trending across Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok with 4.7 million mentions. The optics were catastrophic for Starr. He looked like a bully attacking a beloved 76-year-old king who dared to protect British privacy rights. But here's where this gets even more explosive, and this is the part the mainstream media isn't telling you. The Digital Identity Bill wasn't just about security or modernization. Hidden in Clause 47, subsection 12, buried under 83 pages of legal jargon, was a provision that would give government ministers unprecedented power to access citizen data without warrants, without judicial oversight, without any parliamentary accountability whatsoever. Civil liberties groups called it the most dangerous legislation proposed in modern British history. Liberty, the human rights organization, warned that Clause 47 essentially creates a surveillance state with powers exceeding anything seen in democratic nations. Big Brother Watch called it Orwellian. Even tech companies like Apple and Microsoft privately expressed concerns to government officials about the security implications, but Starmer pushed it through Parliament anyway, rushing the bill through committee stage in just 4 days when similar legislation normally takes months. MPs barely had time to read it, let alone scrutinize the implications. And when Conservative MPs demanded more time for debate, Starmer's whips threatened rebellious Labour MPs with deselection. This wasn't democracy. This was ramming through authoritarian powers while hoping nobody noticed until King Charles noticed. That's why Starmer is so furious. Charles didn't just block a bill, he exposed a power grab that Starmer desperately wanted to hide. Meanwhile, ordinary British citizens who've never owned a smartphone in their lives, who still pay bills with checks, who remember when privacy actually meant something, are absolutely terrified. David Morrison, a 68-year-old veteran from Yorkshire, told the BBC something that made even the anchor pause. "I fought for this country's freedom. I watched mates die defending British values, and now my own government wants my fingerprints and DNA like I'm some kind of criminal. Thank God the king still has the backbone to say no. That clip went viral. Shared 890,000 times in 24 hours. Margaret Chen, a 71-year-old grandmother from Cornwall, recorded a shaky video on her daughter's phone that hit 1.2 million views. I don't understand computers. I don't trust databases, and I'm terrified that one day someone hacks this system and criminals have everything about me. The king protected us. Why is Starmer so angry about that? These aren't political activists or conspiracy theorists. These are lifelong Labour voters, the backbone of British democracy, terrified of their own government and grateful that someone finally stood up for them. And it's not just pensioners. Sarah Williams, a 34-year-old NHS nurse from Manchester, posted a thread on Twitter that got 670,000 likes. I'm Labour through and through, she wrote. But when my Prime Minister threatens the King for protecting my privacy rights, something is seriously wrong. This isn't the Labour Party I grew up believing in. This is something darker, something dangerous, and I'm genuinely scared about where we're heading. Her post resonated across generations, shared by everyone from university students to retired teachers. The contrast couldn't be starker or more damaging. While Charles protects British freedom, Starr demands surveillance powers that would make George Orwell weep. But then something happened that nobody saw coming. Something so unprecedented that constitutional historians are still processing the implications. Thursday afternoon, 3:30 p.m. King Charles broke 70 years of royal protocol and issued a public statement explaining his decision, not through palace officials, not through carefully worded press releases, but in his own voice, speaking directly to the British people. Standing in the gardens of Clarence House, wearing a simple suit with no ceremonial regalia, Charles delivered 4 minutes that will be studied for generations. I do not take this decision lightly, he began, his voice steady but grave. For 316 years, monarchs have granted royal assent without question. But the oath I swore at my coronation was not to rubber stamp legislation. It was to protect the constitutional rights and freedoms that make Britain exceptional. This bill, as currently written, threatens fundamental privacy protections that British citizens have enjoyed for centuries. My role is not to write laws, but it is to ensure that laws respect the balance between security and liberty that defines our democracy. I asked Parliament to reconsider, to consult more widely, to find a path that protects both safety and freedom. Then he said the words that sent shockwaves through Westminster. If Parliament believes my concerns are unfounded, let them override my decision through proper constitutional process. I will respect their judgment, but I will not silently approve legislation that I believe threatens the very freedoms I am sworn to protect. The implications were staggering. Charles wasn't clinging to power. He was inviting Parliament to overrule him if they disagreed. He was transparent, accountable, democratic, everything Starmer claimed to be, but wasn't. Palace insiders later revealed something even more remarkable. Charles spent 2 weeks consulting with privacy experts, former judges, technology specialists, and civil liberties advocates before making his decision. He didn't act impulsively or politically. He did his homework. One source close to the king told the Times His Majesty read every single page of that bill twice. He consulted constitutional lawyers, data security experts, even cybersecurity officials who privately warned about the bill's vulnerabilities. This wasn't about politics. This was about a man who takes his constitutional duties seriously enough to actually understand what he was being asked to approve. That revelation made Starmer look even worse. While the Prime Minister rushed legislation through Parliament without proper scrutiny, the supposedly ceremonial figurehead did the job Parliament was supposed to do. He read the bill. He understood the implications. He protected British citizens. And for doing his actual constitutional duty, Starmer attacked him. The domino effect was immediate and absolutely brutal for Labour. Within 1 hour, YouGov released emergency polling showing 68% of Britain supported the King's decision. Only 19% backed Starmer with 13% undecided. Labour's approval rating plummeted from 38% to 24% in a single day, the sharpest collapse in modern polling history. In Labour, strongholds like Liverpool, Manchester, and Newcastle, support cratered by 18 to 22 percentage points. Nearly 60% of Labour's own voters said Starmer was wrong to attack the King. This wasn't a political setback. This was an extinction-level event for the government. Financial markets panicked. The pound dropped 2.3% against the dollar, wiping £47 billion from the UK economy in 6 hours. Investment firms issued warnings about political instability. International outlets from the New York Times to Der Spiegel ran headlines about Britain's constitutional chaos. Goldman Sachs released a note to investors warning that Britain's political turmoil could trigger capital flight from London's financial markets. JP Morgan downgraded UK government bonds from stable to negative. On social media, the mockery became relentless. Starr photoshopped as Oliver Cromwell with the caption, "How did that work out last time?" Starr in medieval stocks with "This is what happens when you forget who the British people actually love." Memes flooded the internet faster than Labour's press office could issue denials. This wasn't politics anymore. This was public execution through ridicule. Inside Number 10, the atmosphere became toxic. Ministers who once defended Starr religiously are now distancing themselves at record speed. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, normally his most loyal supporter, has gone completely silent. No television interviews, no statements, no defense. Senior sources say she spent Wednesday evening meeting privately with backbench MPs, positioning herself. She's not defending the Prime Minister anymore. She's preparing to replace him. Chancellor Rachel Reeves held what insiders described as a brutal 2-hour meeting with Starr on Thursday morning. Witnesses say shouting could be heard through closed doors. Reeves emerged looking grim and refused to answer questions from waiting journalists. By Friday, she had briefed 3 separate newspapers that she had serious concerns about the government's direction. That's not politics. That's a leadership challenge being assembled in real time. Transport Secretary Louise Hay has already resigned. Her letter devastating. "I cannot serve a Prime Minister who shows such contempt for constitutional safeguards and the monarch who protects them." Within 24 hours, 2 junior ministers followed. Environment Secretary Steve Reid is reportedly considering his position. Scotland Secretary Ian Murray has stopped returning Starr's calls. Each resignation is another crack in Starmer's crumbling authority. WhatsApp groups with names like Steady the Ship and Party First are discussing timetables for leadership votes. One leaked message from a senior backbencher read, "We've got maybe 72 hours before this becomes terminal. If we don't move now, we're looking at 1931 all over again." The question isn't if they'll move against Starr, it's when. Leaked messages obtained by The Times reveal something even more shocking. A group of 47 Labour MPs are drafting emergency legislation to strip the monarchy of royal assent powers entirely, reducing Charles to a purely ceremonial figurehead with zero constitutional authority. The draft bill leaked to The Guardian would transfer all remaining royal powers to Parliament and effectively end 1,000 years of constitutional monarchy. Constitutional experts warn this could trigger a referendum on abolishing the monarchy entirely, splitting the nation in ways not seen since the Civil War. But here's the twist that could destroy what's left of Starmer's government forever. Leaked cabinet documents obtained by The Telegraph revealed that Starmer's own legal advisors warned him 3 weeks ago that the digital identity bill had serious constitutional problems. Senior government lawyers wrote that the bill presented significant concerns regarding privacy protections, data security, and constitutional oversight, and specifically warned that royal assent might be challenged given the bill's unprecedented scope. In other words, Starmer knew this was coming. He knew the bill was legally vulnerable. He knew Charles might object and he pushed it through anyway, gambling that the king wouldn't dare refuse. That gamble destroyed his government. Starmer didn't stumble into a constitutional crisis. He deliberately triggered one. Internal Labour emails show his advisors discussed using the bill as a test case to challenge royal authority. One email explicitly stated, "If we can get this through without royal interference, we establish precedent that effectively eliminates the monarch's veto power." This was a constitutional coup disguised as a security bill, and it backfired spectacularly. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage and Reform UK are having the best week of their political lives. While Labour tears itself apart, Farage appeared calm and confident, praising the king for protecting freedom. Reform UK surged in the polls. Labour collapsed to 3rd place. Britain is now witnessing a fractured political landscape and a populist surge once dismissed as impossible. The next 72 hours are critical. Parliament reconvenes for an emergency session to decide whether to override the King's decision. Protests are planned. Palace sources say Charles is consulting constitutional experts. Inside Westminster, leadership plots are accelerating. Starmer's grip on power isn't slipping.